Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Infernal Intercourse. It's back with me and Pastor Brian.
Hello.
And so today we want to talk about Lucifer and friendships. Because this character started off in season 1, which I noticed when I went back to go to season 1, really pushing the sexuality. We really pushed the every time he's around almost anyone, but especially women, they just sort of like fall at his feet. So he's able to get, the police officer who's a woman who's like in charge of something to do something for him just because he kind of like smiled at her. We seem to have kind of like dropped a lot of that over the seasons, but they really pushed that the first part of the first season when he doesn't really have a lot of really strong connections with other characters. And so we've changed that along the way. And so we're going to take a look at some of the friendships that Lucifer has managed to find over the past 4.5 seasons. So opening thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as you say that, for me in my particular context, having come from all boys high school, come from an area where guys hung out together a lot and then lived in recovery houses with all guys, I definitely noticed early on, going back and reviewing today, I noticed early on a lot, just Lucifer just constantly dropping that, his sexual prowess everywhere and things like that. And it's funny because even when I was in high school, it was kind of like those guys who talk about it all the time are the ones who don't really get it, right? Like that kind of thing. So, but with Lucifer, that's not the case. And so then it becomes, okay, so why is this adult man who is so prodigious with this, why does he constantly need to talk about it? So I do think that's kind of part of this whole thinking about what's friendship and what's not, and why is it that way with him.
Yeah, because what I started to notice, especially by the time season 4 finished up, was that, okay, so Lucifer's making at least a little bit of progress with Linda. He's kind of getting more self-aware and coping with some emotions at least a little bit. And he's made these pretty strong friendships, but they may be entirely with female characters. He's friends with Ella. He's made friends with Chloe. He's got, finally he and Linda become friends. And there's even that one episode where she comes in season 3, where she comes by the penthouse and says, I was really thinking tonight, thinking about your situation. Am I your therapist or am I your friend?
Ever since you left my office, I've been struggling between my role as your therapist and my concern for you as a friend. Friendship 1.
He's got a pretty strong relationship with Linda. He developed a really good relationship with Candy. The sort of wife he had for a little bit there. I love Candy. Love to see her again.
Yeah.
And in a sense, he had a pretty good friendship with Eve too, because she says there, right when one of the first episodes she shows up, she tells someone, no one asked me what I wanted. I was just made for Adam, and no one asked me if that's what I would prefer. But then Lucifer.
I was literally created to be someone's wife. No one ever asked me if that's what I really wanted. Except for him.
It seems like even back then he's like acknowledging other people have thoughts and emotions that other people aren't bothering to acknowledge. So
that's weird because that's a superpower, one of his superpowers, right? Like to tell me what you truly desire, right? Yeah. And so as you're saying this, and it's interesting to me, and we're going to talk about friendship with men too, but I one of the things I love is that he's clearly pansexual and that they don't make a big deal out of gender, but really most of the sexual energy here they tend to develop between men and women, right? And so I do think, I hate to always reference the writers, but and I really I really haven't ever looked at the names of the writers, who the writers are. I don't know their previous work, so I really have no idea how much their own personal experience plays into it. But I definitely, as a gay man who has had best friends who are women all my life, definitely my closest. I was raised by women. I'm close to my women relatives more than my male relatives, and all my best friends are women. but I do have a love and appreciation for men and enjoy time with men and enjoy just the presence of men and the culture of men. And so I do feel that lacking. I've mentioned before a couple episodes that are kind of brotastic, but I do think maybe that's a normal thing because I do see that in the real world among straight men anyway, but among gay men too. This whole idea that men are dogs and men are the worst, and you don't trust other men and you don't open up to other men. So I do wonder about that.
So you can have women as friends, but not other men as friends.
Because you can be vulnerable in front of women and not men, which of course is, the big thing in society that's killing everybody. But yeah, I do think that that's probably part of it.
Okay.
It's so performative too, and I feel like Lucifer is very performative early on, right?
Yeah, and he does actually have a sexual relationship with Linda at first. When she breaks it off, then they kind of restructure their relationship, and then end up as friends. He does at some point kind of proposition Ella when he mistakes something she says for that she's interested in him, and he's like, sure, but we'll have to be quick or something, and she's like, what? No, and then they move on. But really, he's never pursued her the way he did most women in the first season. So he seems to have changed the point where he's sort of open to friendships now in a way that maybe he wasn't 4 seasons ago. So I just find it interesting that when I was thinking about it, it's like, well, okay, Lucifer's friends with a bunch of women now, even though he used to just be sort of like the guy looking for sex of women. Obviously, sometimes men too, but we've mostly, as you said, seen women on the show.
I think it's interesting. Ella gives off that kind of nerdy sex vibe, whereas most of the women that he hooks up with or whatever have that kind of bombshell vibe. And so, again, that's kind of stereotypical. But I do think I feel that from the point of view of the show that Ella, they don't give Ella that energy, which is maybe why I liked when she kind of looked like she hooked up with that rough guy. And was it season 5? I think I liked that. He was hot. So it was like, go girl. But, and I know that too, it's, the stereotype is that the nerdy girls are also the freaky girls, right? And so a lot of guys know that too. I mean, that's just one of the stereotypes among men. So that's kind of interesting too. Oh, I never thought about that till just now.
So is it, yeah, we discussed a little bit earlier between just me and Brian that in our society it's not always, I don't know, supported, acknowledged. I don't know what quite the right word would be, that men can be friends with other men, that those kind of relationships are more difficult to navigate. So it kind of like Lucifer to find a male friend and have to navigate that, because he's certainly not doing really a job of being a friend of Dan's. I mean, they kind of got a little bit closer when like Chloe was in danger, and then I guess the showrunners may felt that maybe he and Dan were getting too chummy, and they really liked better when they were more antagonized each other. So they went back to where, Dan's like moved his desk under the stairs because he can't stand to be close to Lucifer and things, So they're like not friends for sure. But now Dan's kind of got this weird hippie vibe where he's handing out friendship bracelets and things. So, but then he gets, figures out that that Lucifer really is Lucifer, which to me leads to an interesting scene toward the end of the first half of season 5 where Mazikeen brings him in to the police station to talk to Lucifer, and he's afraid of Lucifer, but he doesn't seem to really cotton on to the fact that means Mazikeen's really a demon and Amenadiel really is another angel. It's like he's now afraid of Lucifer, but he hasn't gone that next step to realize, oh, all these other people I know in my life are also supernatural creatures. So,
and again, plugging our upcoming Satan episode, because it could be just the appearance, right? That manifestation of Lucifer's real appearance seems to have some kind of particular effect on most, not all humans, right?
If that is his real appearance, which is something I would bring in.
Yeah, interesting too. Yeah.
All right. So, anything else you want to talk about friendships? So is it just in our culture that men can't be friends with other men? Because as I've mentioned to Brian, and I haven't mentioned in this episode yet, that I've been seeing things on my Facebook feed about the Marvel movies, which I love, and how a lot of people are saying, oh, Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes have to be lovers. They can't possibly be friends. And it's like, because why? I mean, why is that this level of, okay, this is the line we can't cross, man. If Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes are sleeping together, fine, but they certainly can't be friends. And it's like, what's the hang up here, right? Just
And what's interesting about that is they're not seeing it as a mutual friendship or relationship, right? And so it's almost like we have to constantly go into this preconceived role of the man and the woman, even if it's a gay thing, right? Not seeing gay partnership, not seeing gay mutuality. And so that there's, I feel like, and when you mentioned, I mentioned this to you before in private, but this whole, the misogyny that underlies a lot of these fanatical fandoms that comes out in these guys. And so like, even that to me is, I think, men being trapped in the gender straitjacket so that again, yeah, they can't be vulnerable to other men. They have to be very performative. It is true that there's you learn to operate as a team with men, kind of from hunter-gatherer to soldiers together kind of a thing, being raised in all-boys high school. That was very much a dynamic, but there is always a boundary that you're not supposed to cross. And yet I do see with generations who are famously more enlightened about this, I see that disintegrating a little bit, but still the men, both straight and gay, react differently to women than men, and they have different comfort levels with how they can be around either. And I think that's all societal, but I think it's reflected here. And I think it's just reflected in the fact that Lucifer tends to be so hetero, overly hetero, even though, they've established to their credit that he's not exclusively so. Right?
All right. Well, let us know what you think about Lucifer's friendships in the comments. We'd like to hear what you think about it. So if you enjoyed this episode, remember to hit like and subscribe and the little bell notifications so you know when more episodes go up. And we will see you next time on Infernal Intercourse.
Bye-bye.